Hi everyone, this is Michelle for Expat Life Mexico. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the things that drive me crazy while living in Mexico. I just sometimes just like, and I just think it's important to discuss these things with my audience. So for those who are considering traveling here or considering moving here, just letting you know what might just drive you a little over the edge. But we're going to top it all off with me talking about the things that really outweigh the frustration. So thank you for joining me. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. Hit the like button on this video if you get through and you really enjoyed it. I appreciate it. So let's get right to it. So one of the things I wanted to share with you all is that things in Mexico really move at a slower pace, right? Much slower than maybe what we're used to in the United States, which I think is the reason why we have tuned out a lot of things in terms of being very, human and kind to others. So for myself, I know that oftentimes I'll go somewhere and I'll think, oh, this should only take about 10 minutes. And really, it should only take about 10 minutes. And it ends up taking like 30 minutes. Basic. I have so many examples, and I run into this on a regular basis where I want to go, like for the example, the other day I went to the bank to update my address, and it literally took an hour and a half, and I'm still not done. I still have to go back to sign more papers. So just giving you an example of maybe walking with a lot of patience. So my top reasons and things that I want to talk about would be things that are going much slower than we expect it to, things that really take a while for us to like walk through these processes. And I say us because I'm sure there are plenty of others that have experienced this. One of the things that I can't always understand is when I go into a coffee shop or I go to the bank, there's always some kind of weird hang up of some sort, right? There'll be maybe one person in front of me, and then 30 minutes later I'm like, why am I still standing here? Or why am I still waiting? And a lot of times, I hate to say this, there's like 3 or 4 people who are doing nothing in my eyes that should not be focused on the client or the customer. So sometimes I just kind of am looking around and I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's just not the same urgency of attending to what I'm supposed to be doing in my job versus, oh, I'm doing this. I'll give you another example. I went to pay electricity a couple weeks ago, and I just wasn't sure or clear about the kiosk, what the kiosk was telling me. Now there's like this whole tinted window. There's someone in there in the office, and you can see like the light of the computer. There's like a piece of cardboard blocking the little mini window. So it's sort of like, a don't bother me kind of thing, right? But if you really need something, go ahead and knock on that glass and maybe I'll answer you. Well, I was waiting in the line to use the kiosk, and there were 2 people waiting for the person inside the magic window. And I went to the kiosk. I couldn't tell what was what. So I left, and I was checking on my phone for whatever info I needed. Ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to the person in the magic window. And I noticed that the 2 people that were there, before I left, one of them was getting helped. And this was like a 1 or 2 minute span of time. When I went back, they were gone, and I knocked on the door. No one came. And I mean, the room is really tiny, so there's like really probably nowhere to go. Maybe there's a bathroom in there. I don't know. And so I waited, and I kind of was trying to look in the glass, the magic window, and I could see the computer screen. Pretty sure I heard some movement. Was trying not to be obnoxious, and so I waited, and then I knocked again. And to be honest with you, I hate to say this, but I'm pretty sure that person didn't want to help me because I don't speak clear Spanish, but they don't know that. They don't know that I speak enough to get done what I need. It just felt very like, I'm just going to act like I'm not here. Or maybe they were doing something else. I said maybe they're on lunch break, right? So I was waiting, and then I knocked the third time harder. And, I should have just said something. But I kind of felt that, all right, as I'm waiting, I'm looking on my phone to get the answer to my question. But the point is that the sense of, customer care, urgency just doesn't exist. And what really got my ears on fire was that someone else came in behind me, and I went back to the kiosk to check whatever it was, and they also knocked. It was a local person, and someone answered. That one person that was behind the magic window. So things like this happen, and I really was gonna like turn around and be like, and I thought to myself, you know what? There are so many times when I just have to let things go. I really let a lot go here. It's not fair all the time. It doesn't feel good all the time, but I feel like those things kind of do not outweigh the pros of living in Mexico and in general my experience in Mexico. But when they come up, it does feel very frustrating. So I would say one of the top things I always am thinking about in my mind, and I say this to potential clients that want to move here to live in this beautiful country, is come with like double doses of patience. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and it can be overwhelming. But I want you to see the beauty of the country, the people, the culture, the food, the experience of living in another place over those moments that really sometimes, you can feel the heat rising up your back, to your neck, to your ears, to your mouth, right? Because sometimes I'm ready to go at it. And I'm like, it's probably a good thing that my Spanish isn't great, because otherwise I would probably, let way too much else out. That probably would not be very becoming. But I just kind of like, I do walk with a lot of patience in my cup, because I think it's just one of those things that even if I lived in Europe or some other country that they spoke English, that it still would be very challenging, right? So another frustration, speaking of language, is the language. There's a lot of misunderstandings. We do a lot of body talking, all of these crazy things that we have to do to communicate. But I do think that it's very beneficial for people to try to learn, or start out with basic Spanish, and also don't have like the expectations that Mexicans should be speaking our language in their country, right? That comes up a lot. Unfortunately, it comes up a lot in San Miguel. It comes up a lot in places that are expat or foreign or tourist heavy. And although, yes, maybe in certain places, like for example Cancun, we're getting tourists in all the time, and people just assume, okay, I'm at a resort and everyone here speaks English, which is normally the case. However, when you step off the resort, there's probably a bunch of people who don't speak English because they don't need to, right? And that's not their first language. So I think like the language can really be a challenge, not just for travel. Like the travel is short. Normally you're on vacation for, a shorter period of time, but living, it's a whole different ball game. And I think that it definitely behooves people who want to live in a foreign country, whether it's Mexico or somewhere else, to try to learn the basics. Not only does it help you kind of maneuver around, it also helps you to expand the circle that you might have. Some people will say, oh, I just want to hang out with, Americans, or I just want to hang out with Black Americans, or I just want to hang out with white Americans, or I just want to do whatever, and I just want to be in my comfort zone or whatever, and I just want to speak to people that speak English. Well, that's fine. It's your choice. You can do whatever you want. But I also think that you then you miss out. You miss out on the local things. You miss out on meeting amazing local people. You miss out on understanding better the local foods, the traditions, holidays, just the culture of what's happening around you. Okay, again, it's your choice, right? But personally, with all the traveling that I've done, I always try to just kind of have the basics. And of course, I get excited if I can speak to someone in my language because I know that then I can communicate better and I can find these things out about them on a personal level. And that's the part that I think is really special, is getting to know people on a more personal level if you can and when those opportunities pop up, right? So, and speaking of that, some of the other frustrations that you can and will experience if you travel, especially to Mexico, is being charged more, right? I don't know if there's a way around this. I just know that it happens. And when it does not feel good at all, okay? Again, is another reason if you do your homework, your research, and you can communicate a little bit better, enough to say, no, por qué and why, then, it kind of helps you defend yourself and your emotions probably. But I just know that I don't like it. I don't like it. It's happened to me. I can think of several very distinct times when I felt that I was just overcharged because I was a foreigner. But I would say for the most part, a lot of the things that I receive pricing on feels fair enough, right? Of course, everyone has a little bit of being an opportunistic person inside of them, right? I'm assuming, I'm generalizing here, right? It's kind of like that, did you negotiate? Did you know before you went into whatever that situation was that the average cost is $5 and not $10? Things like that, right? So it happens, and I don't think it's a good feeling. It's not fair, but it happens. It happens. So that coupled with some patience and a little knowledge about what things should cost pretty much will help you kind of defend yourself, right? Like, for example, I went to Mexico City last weekend, and for the most part, all of my transportation throughout the weekend was fairly priced except one. And the guy was very blatant about it, but at some point I just felt like, you know what, it's kind of my fault because I should have asked him how much is it going to cost for me to get from here to there. But I had just arrived. I got a very fair price from the bus station to an area where I wanted to have lunch. Sorry. And I had lunch, and then I was feeling a little bit my fault again. I did not download the Uber app. I was sort of, talking to Micah, and we were doing our thing, enjoying our lunch and killing time because we couldn't check into our hotel. And when it was time to go, I was just like, okay, let's just hail a taxi, right? And I knew that our place was really close by because we were already en route to our place prior to changing our mind and deciding to eat lunch. And there was like a 30 peso difference, which right now is about $2, a $2 difference for me to go at a much shorter distance than when we left the bus station to the lunch spot. So when I got there, I remember thinking to myself, well, first of all, you could have downloaded the Uber app and had it ready to go, but you didn't get around to that yet, but you'll be doing it now. And you could have asked him, how much are you going to charge, and negotiate before you get to the end of the ride. And he just blatantly said, 180 pesos. And I was just like, wow, muy caro, like that's very expensive. And he didn't care. He just looked at me and waited for his money and gave him my change and then left, because, yeah. And that's sometimes what can kind of make us feel, jaded, because I remember my feelings were kind of hurt. I was just thinking, like, I want to say something and I want to complain about it, but I'm just like, you know what? Forget about it. It won't happen tomorrow or the day after, because I'm going to make sure that I use the skill sets that I know I need to use and move on. But it does happen. I've had other people overcharge me for work, and again, a lot of it does have to do with the not knowing, maybe the not asking enough questions, which ties back into frustrations with the language and communication. So there's like a real ball of dynamic things that kind of can lead to one constant ongoing emotion that you'll have. Maybe it even creates some fear around and procrastination around doing things, handling things. But a lot of times what I found is once I get out there, get my answers, I'm like, oh, whew, I made a mountain out of a molehill, and it really wasn't that bad, right? There are a lot of people that are willing to help here, a lot. They don't always know what they're talking about, but there are a lot of people who are willing to try to help you. I'll tell you that. We'll get to that as far as the frustration goes. And that's going to segue right into my next topic of what drives me crazy and bonkers. Before I do that, again, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Every Wednesday I do a live 7 Central. The time's changed, so please keep that in mind now. It's a little late for those of you who are on the East Coast. It will be on replay. You can get to it on my channel. And don't forget to share. And if you enjoy this content, do share with other people. Like I said, hit that button. Okay, so one of the things that I'm running into often, especially now that I am trying to, do Casa ELM, I do my consultations, which are all online, and things like that. It's getting clear, straight information, how to do something in Mexico. So if I sat 5 accountants down from the same state, the same city, even maybe the same college or university, and asked them the same question, I can almost guarantee you that I would get 5 completely different answers. That's because I've been through this. I feel like sometimes even being pushed over the edge is you going in, getting your own answers on your own, translating the language, figuring things out, and going straight to the source. Not telling you not to get help, but I have literally encountered this a lot in the last 14 months where I've asked questions pertaining to the same things of different people in similar fields or a little different, field, and I get a different answer every time. And what I started realizing is it's unfortunate, but there are no real solid, clear ground rules that you can kind of go to get answers. I feel that a lot of times the things here in this country, it's almost like a moving target because things change. There's a lot of change. For example, for those who've already looked into moving to Mexico, trying to get your residency, there's so many different answers to those questions. Like, how much does it cost? How much is the application? If I go to the consulate, one of the consulates in Texas versus one of the ones in Florida, what's the financial requirement? It depends on where you go. It depends on what that person that you're talking to thinks it is or picked up from the latest memo they got. And over here in Florida, maybe it's $1,000 more. Maybe over here in Texas, it's $1,000 less. So what I said earlier, really applies to a lot of these types of situations about being patient and just dealing with the thing that's right in front of you, and also getting expert help, because usually the experts, and this is the perfect example for immigration, they're going to know the latest because they're doing this every day. And, Sonia Diaz, Jessica versus someone else, they're all going to get it done probably for you. They're going to have it done, I would say, more or less in the same way, but their opinions about it, what they know about it might be slightly different. So I think it's best to get a general basic understanding of what's required, and then go to one of the experts and work with that one person. Word of mouth is great, to get referrals and recommendations. Someone who has already been through whatever it is you're trying to figure out, and then go to that person and tell them what your situation is. Because with immigration and a lot of other things, everything is kind of specialized down to what are your specific requirements and details. Yes, there's a broad, this is what's required, but sometimes, there's like a way to figure something out, even if it doesn't happen in that immediate moment. They'll have some kind of advice that maybe they'll say, what, do this for the next 6 or 12 months to get yourself ready to do this process again if you didn't get through, whatever it is. Okay, this is not just applying to immigration. This is me talking about the in general assessment that I've found out about trying to maneuver life in Mexico. Like, there's a lot of processes that are not clear. There's a lot of information that's not clear. My attorney tells me, oh, you're not talking to, like, they only know this and they only know that, and you should be, and I'm just like, I am asking you, but it's still not clear. So, this is again, I talk about my experiences, my observations here. It's my channel, so I share those things with you all, and it ties right back into throwing a cup full of patience on things, and go into it, not necessarily expecting it to not go through or not to work, but go into it just knowing it could take a lot longer than what we're accustomed to. Don't get me wrong, I had lots of frustrations in the United States, a lot of things. I used to hate calling customer service numbers and things like that. I can tell you this, that I've had to call a few 800 numbers in Mexico, which really had my heart at a rapid heartbeat. And I've actually had good experiences that were cutting out a lot of red tape. So that's a pro, that's a pro here. I was dreading calling the internet company, and it actually was cool. There was someone who spoke English. I have dreaded calling my bank. I've had positive experiences. They just walked me through everything in English. I'm like, cool. I've had conversations on the phone in Spanish, and I'm like, okay, I guess I understand more, and they understand me enough. In the beginning, people would hang up on me, but I just kept trying. So the point is that, I think sometimes we build up in our mind, like, what's going to happen. And a lot of times here in Mexico, I expect in my mind that this is not going to take this long, and it ends up taking a really long time. Like I said earlier, this is my most recent thing with the bank. I was just like, why do I have to sit here for how long? And I had to sign like a bunch of papers. And then she asked me, she's like, well, I just deal with, because I don't understand the banking system either. She's like, I just deal with the American dollars that come into the bank. And I said, okay, cool. So then she goes, she was like, do you want to update your address on the peso side? And I'm like, of course I do. Like, yes, that's why I'm here. I'm here to update the address on my account. I don't know what you're asking me. Like, of course I want to update. So if she hadn't asked me and I didn't know, which I didn't, maybe I would have had two different things. I don't know. So then I had to go to a different woman to update my address on the peso side. It's like the same bank, but separate departments and divisions and people who handle separate things. And anyway, it took a long time. And I really felt that in the US, we're able to go online quickly, and maybe other Mexican banks allow you to do this, but you're able to go online really quick and, just update your address, and maybe you have to wait a little while for approval or something. I don't know. But this took a long time, and I had to sign so many papers, but I got it done. And the nice, sweet part about it was I actually enjoyed myself because I sat there and I had a whole long conversation with a woman named Elizabeth. She's so sweet. And we're just chatting away. She's been working there since I opened an account, and she's asking me about Micah, and she's telling me about her daughter, and she was telling me how much she loved my photo on WhatsApp and all these, and who took your so we had this interaction that is very common in Mexico. And then we're going to move over into why I think culturally people are just more chill and laid back. So there's not the sense of urgency because they take the time to enjoy, right? Enjoy moments, enjoy life, to chill out, not be uptight. And, I feel like here I say we, I come with, this internal thing. It's not always, coming out of me in my tone or whatever, but my internal thing is always like, oh my God, why is this taking so long? I just came here to get a coffee. Like, why am I still standing in the line? There's not even anyone in front of me, and they're not ready. The store is open, has been open for 15 minutes, and they're still putting the net on their head. And they're putting the beans in the coffee machine, and they're pulling I'm just looking, and nobody has said, Buenos dias, I'll be with you in a moment. They just kind of keep moving around like they don't see you. And then I'm just standing there tick tock, tick tock, with a smile on my face, tick tock. But inside, I'm just here we go again. But again, back to patience. Give everything more time, right? Time is money. Time is valuable. But why make yourself crazy, right? Because maybe in the end, you'll be so stressed out that you don't even live longer because you stretch your own self out because you didn't give yourself more time to get that coffee that took 30 minutes, that yummy cappuccino with the pretty design on top and the free little croissants that they give you, included in the price. So I just always say walk with grace because, it's not like everything in Mexico is not like the drive-through mentality. It's revving the engine at 60 to get to 80 in the next 2 seconds. So the point is that these are things that will kind of try your patience. But a lot of times I think culturally when we come with this, Mexicans kind of look at us like we're crazy. Chill out. What's the big deal? So, and I'm not saying everywhere. I can say San Miguel culturally is way more laid back than Mexico City, right? Mexico City and other big cities, people are on the go. They're moving, they're doing their thing, it's fast paced and whatever. So it is a little different, but I'm speaking again about my experiences here in San Miguel. What else? Skill sets. So there's always a brother of a brother, sister of a sister, friend of a friend, family member of a family member who can do stuff for you, but maybe they don't really know what they're doing, right? So you have to be kind of mindful of the fact that culturally, again, a lot of locals don't want to say no to things, even though they know good and well they don't know how to do that, or they don't have time to do that, or they're not really interested in helping you. But I find a lot of people and this is a good thing because typically if they can help you, they will. But sometimes people will say yes, but they really, and they might not show up, or, you know, they might come and act like, you know, they've got the problem solved, and then they kind of will create a bigger problem. So, and I've learned these things because, you know, I now have Casa ELM, and it's like there's, you know, things that come up, things that, so I have a couple who I love to death. I love them, love them, love them. They have been lifesavers in so many things. But what I've learned is that if I ask a question, they're always willing to help me get an answer, but they don't always necessarily know how to get to the answer or get the problem solved. So one of the recent things I asked about was creating like a small bathroom. And they had a great idea, like instead of doing it, you know, in this space, let's do it over here. And I was like, okay, that sounds really cool. And here's the reason why we should do it that way, because you know, it's already going downhill, and the septic tank is over there, and da da da. And I said, okay, you know, I'll send you some pictures of some ideas, very simple, basic thing, and give me a quote, let me know whatever. And we talked about this in November, and it's March, and I asked, I think once or twice following that, and every time we have conversations around this, it's like, yeah, okay, and what do you think? And then, you know, I ask my questions. I'm like, well, what about the electricity? How could we do that? Or should we get some solar, you know, lights or something? Because it's just like a temporary, real short use kind of space. And they're like, yeah, you know, I'm working, and whatever. So we have this whole conversation, and I'm ready to go back and do my research on the items. And then I'm like, okay, where's the quote? Because I want to know, because they keep telling me it's not expensive. And I'm like, okay, well, what is not expensive? You know, like for you, what can you come up with that my brain can wrap around? So in saying that, it's one of those things where it, you know, things come and go. They want to help. They're usually really like on top of it typically, but then there's some things where I have to like kind of really decipher, especially with the lack of clear communication. Like my Spanish is good enough, like we get each other, right? We get each other. But the point is when you recognize that, don't force the pieces together, right? If someone's kind of not grasping and gravitating towards what you need, leave it alone, right? Don't get mad. Don't force it. Just walk away and find someone else, because it's probably going to end up being very messy. You're not going to be happy maybe in the end. And yeah, anyone that has purchased a home, especially done remodeling or home building or anything like that, trust, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I have literally built a house that took 3.5 years, 15 or 16 years ago here in Mexico, and it was a lot. It was a lot of patience there. Remodeled a hotel or two, a lot of patience. You got to have a lot of patience. Would I do it again? I would, because I like the process a lot. I love how talented people are here with their hands and creative, and I like that. I like solving those kind of problems, right? I don't want to solve number problems. I want to solve building problems with materials and raw materials, and, you know, get down to the nitty gritty and say, okay, you only have cement. Okay, let's throw some color in, let's polish it off and make it creative, and let's do this on the wall. And I love stuff like that. So, but what I've learned is if there's someone who is kind of, you know, procrastinating getting something to you, they probably don't know how to do stuff. And then there are those who will say they know how to do things and they don't. So you really, you know, you just got to kind of ask the right questions. Or there's the hustle, you know, where they really do know how to do something, or they know someone. Like, you know, there was someone who did work for me, and I got this word of mouth person from another friend, and he was amazing. He did really good work, you know. And then I happened to ask him about metal work, and he was just like, yeah, I think he said brother-in-law and he does whatever. So I'm thinking the brother-in-law is going to come out, measure the space, tell me what it costs, whatever. But no, I never saw the brother-in-law, right? But I was already like in to this project, and we bought materials, we loaded them up on his van, and he gave the measurements to the brother-in-law, and they came back out to install when it was all said and done. And I was very happy with it. The design was very clear, but I was kind of like, at the end I thought, well, I know I paid more than I should have for this, because I'm sure this dude put his little cushion in for his time, which is fine to a certain extent, but you want to know what is the cost for you, and if you have to pay someone to move materials or whatever. But this isn't like a sales call where if you land a contract, you get a commission. No, I want to go straight to the source. So it's always better to go straight to the source. So following that, I actually found someone that does the same work, and it wasn't the brother-in-law, it wasn't this guy, it was someone else, and I just go straight to the source. So you'll find that you can cut a lot of like red tape out and a lot of nonsense out, but sometimes you just got to go through these things to learn how to maneuver here, especially when you're not speaking Spanish perfectly, right? Again, I speak enough, but I think depending on whatever your situations might be, if you move, whether it's looking for an apartment, there's going to be challenges. There will be challenges. So don't give up, people. Fight the good fight, because they will drive you crazy, and it just happens. It just happens. But I can tell you on the pro side that for me, the people of Mexico in general are amazing. I mean, really, really helpful in so many ways. Curious. They want to know about you in general. And maybe again, this is around here. I've had very positive experiences, more than I expected to have, because when I moved here, a lot of times we all do this. We come with the mindset of adventure and how much does it cost to live here? I don't think we're really expecting to get so much more than we signed up for. I didn't expect to get so much in way of community. And that for me has been one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced in anywhere that I've lived. I remember even as a child where we lived, we didn't have community, even though we were in like a small, kind of a, in general, neighborhood. We played with the neighbors, our friends next door and stuff like that. But I don't remember, people coming over and hanging out with us. It was always kind of, our unit, the people in our church, the people that were in our circle. Maybe our neighbors came over blue moons, but it wasn't like, just come one and come all. And in Florida, like I lived there for over 10 years, and I can count on one hand how many long-term friends I made. And maybe it's part of it's me, because I can be a little bit introverted in general. But I just feel like culturally we don't have this kind of open mindset, and here people definitely are more inviting in general. Even if you landed in Puebla and it's a small town and they're just looking at you like, whatever, there's still a lot of curiosity there. If you speak the language and you can communicate, there's probably going to be more people who would speak to you than not. They're not so self-absorbed with their own things and what they're doing in their life and their cell phone and whatever. And I can appreciate that so much. There's a lot more simplicity to how people interact here. And I really can find so many relatable things in that. And I really appreciate it so much. I've had people who've helped me that didn't know who, so many things I can think of. For just as like a brief example of, this might be more service based, but it's happened multiple times where yesterday, so Friday, I was having some minor issues with my car. Like I got out, got back in, turned it off, turned it on, turned it off, turned it on, and then on the last time, it just was like slow to start, and I was just like, oh no, like not right now. I got so much to do, and then I drove around the corner to the mechanic, and I was just like, literally, I said, okay, I hope if my car shuts down, that I'm just not blocking traffic and being annoying. But I know I'm gonna get over there because it wasn't that far away, and I'm like, just the thought process was there will probably be several people who will get out and help me. So if they got to push me out of the way and I got to call a tow company, or my mechanic is right there, he'll come and get me some way, somehow, this is going to be solved. And I'm just going to drive over there. And I did. I got over there. And he was like, well, leave the car. I had no appointment, of course. And he said, leave it. You can come and get it tomorrow. We'll get it figured out. And then they started it. Like three guys came. They were writing the paper. They were checking and doing whatever. And then in the end, I was walking away and I said, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store, catch a taxi with Micah, and head home. My house is a little bit outside of town. And the mechanic comes running around the corner. He's like, Michelle. And I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up, Hanero? And he goes, we'll drop you home. And I'm like, okay, cool. And on the way home, I said, can you stop at the ATM? Because I was like, in case I need extra pesos so I can take a taxi. And then the following day, Micah had a competition early in the morning. And I was just like, I know I'm going to get to the competition, even though, again, I live a little bit outside of town. So I contacted this other lady that helps me during the week. And I was like, hey, Betty, are you available to drive us to Micah's competition? She's like, sure, what time? And, of course I'm paying for it, but it's like things like this are so supportive for me in my life here and a lot of other people. And I even want to say, like, as a single parent, and even as a single person, as a family, there's so much support here, and this feels to me the most like that it takes a village situation. There are just so many people that are just like there for you, right? And it's not like they're not hung up on things, Of course, some things you got to pay for, but there are a number of people that I can ask for help. Last year, same thing. My car was in the shop in Querétaro. My housekeeper and her husband drove their little car over and said, keep it as long as you want to. And I wasn't I didn't ask them, I have a friend here. I said, oh, tomorrow I got to get to Querétaro at 2 a.m. Can you drive me? Yep. We're going to leave at 12:30 at night. It's not all so mechanical where it's like, oh, well, let's arrange an Uber. Let me get a taxi. It's just one of those places, and I find it very magical. So for me, all the frustrations and things, I can throw a lot of patience on top of that because there are all these other gems over here, right? So this is why I kind of walk in this kind of mindset versus my expectations being so high. Like, this is what I'm used to. This is where I came from in the U.S. or Canada or wherever, and this is how things should be. And no, I just know that I'm in another place, another country, another culture, and that there will be pros and cons. And when the cons come up, handle them. Understand what makes my blood pressure go up is the things and the way I perceive that they should be, as opposed to this is what it is. And yes, you maybe have to say some things sometimes. You maybe have to speak up for yourself sometimes. You may have to, double check the price on something that you're being given and question it sometimes or whatever. But understanding that, I can control my emotions around this as much as possible. Don't get me wrong, I am not a sweet and cherry person all the time. Yeah, especially when I'm driving. So I'm pretty calm in general, but yeah, every now and then I get a little ballistic. So I don't want you to think that I'm just like, oh, ha 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 ha. No, every now and then I'm just like, seriously, what and the effity F is happening here. So, I just want to say though that overall, that is kind of my approach to things, because otherwise I'm just going to drive myself crazy. And maybe my son, because he'll be hearing me chatting about it, and he'll just kind of give me the look like, okay, mom, chill. And one of the other things I want to say is really one of the best ways to get help and maybe get to the right kind of help is by word of mouth. It is a word of mouth society here, just like it is a cash society. You want to, ask other people that maybe did what you want to do, or needs help with something, or you need help with something. Ask someone else that already went through it, because they're going to get you to the right person, right? The systems here don't work the same way. There are a lot of very archaic kind of processes to things. In the US, I think it was because I remember when I first got here going on Google, because I was used to doing that in the US, like searching for whatever it was. And here, honestly, Facebook is like Google. And within the Facebook groups, then you can do searches. If you're looking for a doctor, a nail person, a masseuse, someone to take care of your animals, whatever it is, right? Facebook kind of operates in a small town mentality like Google search, but in San Miguel. Okay, it might even do this in other places. Again, I live here. I'm not going to talk about other places, but what I noticed is you can get a lot of information from Facebook groups, and I already did a video. There are some very snarky people sometimes. You ask a very basic, simple question, and I think they're just with nothing better to do, and they make comments. And sometimes you can get your feelings hurt if you're not expecting it. But do know that that is a great source for you to get a lot. So if you don't have a Facebook account, I know a lot of people hate using Facebook. I don't care for it, but it is kind of like a great way to get, the info you're looking for, join groups to get more info that you need. It's just a great space to kind of expand how you would come down to San Miguel and what kind of things are here, what's happening here, right? So we have a lot of communities within San Miguel that are very specific and not. And then there's the general stuff, there's the civil list. There's multiple civil lists. I call it uncivil lists sometimes. There's mama groups for San Miguel specifically. So if you're a parent, you can go there and see info about schools and stuff like that. So I just want to say this is kind of a pro-con thing or video, but within the cons lie the pros and vice versa. And here's kind of the path or way to kind of help you combat things and balance them out in your mind. So again, this is Michelle for Expat Life Mexico. I hope this video serves some really good purpose for you. And if you liked it and you didn't hit the like button yet, please do that. And if you have not subscribed, please do so. I offer relocation consultations for those that might be interested at expatlifemexico.com. This is how I help you create a blueprint for your specific journey to Mexico, and maybe to help you dispel some of the concerns and fears and unknowns surrounding moving here. It's a huge country, and there are 32 states, and there's so much access for you to have a beautiful existence in Mexico. But I do highly recommend that you come with a plan, so that those frustrations can be more down here as opposed to here, roller coaster riding all over the place. I do not give financial advice. I don't help you find a job. There are lots of other people out there that can help you with that. I help you take the journey once you're ready, and tell you from my experiences and all the other people that I've worked with how they made it, what they're doing, and why they love it or they don't or whatever. Because everyone that comes doesn't necessarily end up loving it, but I think most people that do end up loving it did their research, right? We also offer relocation tours and other experiences in San Miguel, so you can figure that out on casaelm.com. There you can find a lot of experiences that we do in a package that will allow you to decide, is SMA for you, San Miguel de Allende for you, aka SMA, or is somewhere else in Mexico for you, or is not at all, right? So join me there, join me on Wednesday nights for my lives, and that's it. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you on the next video. Ciao.